The auditorium was packed. Rows and rows of parents filled the seats. Cameras were raised. Programs rustled in nervous hands. Graduation music had just faded. Blue gowns moved across the stage, like waves. And then my stepdaughter walked to the podium. She adjusted the microphone, cleared her throat, looked across the crowd. Then her eyes landed on me, right there, in the third row. And what she said next made the entire room go quiet. "I want to thank my mom," she said proudly. "She's the only parent who truly raised me." The audience nodded warmly, but then she continued, "And the man sitting over there." She pointed, straight at me. "Well, he just happened to live in our house." A few people laughed softly. Someone behind me whispered, "Guess he wasn't much of a father." My wife stiffened beside me. I stayed still, hands resting calmly in my lap. I didn't react, but inside something shifted. Not anger, not even embarrassment, just a deep, quiet ache. Because for 12 years, I had given that girl everything I could, and in a single sentence, she erased me. The strange thing about painful moments is that they make your mind travel backward. As she stood on that stage, my thoughts drifted 12 years into the past, to the first day I met her. She was 7 years old, small frame, skinny arms, a tight little ponytail. Her eyes were big, cautious, guarded. Her mom and I had been dating for a few months when she finally introduced us. We met at a park on a mild Sunday afternoon. Children were laughing on the playground. The smell of freshly cut grass filled the air. Her mom held her hand as we approached the bench. "This is David," she told her gently. The little girl looked up at me, long, silent, careful, like a cat studying someone new in its territory. I smiled. "Hi there." She didn't answer, just nodded once, then turned away. I didn't take it personally. Kids who've been hurt learn early not to trust too quickly. Her father had left years earlier, moved across the country. Phone calls slowly stopped. Birthday cards disappeared. By the time I entered the picture, she had already learned something most children shouldn't have to learn. People leave, so you don't get too attached. From the beginning, I promised myself one thing. I would never try to replace anyone. I would simply show up, consistently, quietly, patiently, day after day. At first, I was just mom's friend. I helped carry groceries, fixed a broken cabinet, changed light bulbs, normal things. But I always noticed her watching, from doorways, from across rooms, measuring, observing, trying to understand what kind of man I was. A few months later, her bike chain broke in the driveway. She stood there frustrated, kicking the tire. I walked over. "Mind if I take a look?" She shrugged. I flipped the bike upside down, grease on my hands. 5 minutes later, the chain was back in place. She tested the pedals. They spun smoothly. She looked surprised, then said quietly, "Thanks." It was the first word she ever spoke to me. A year later, her mother and I got married. We moved into a small house together. Nothing fancy, just a cozy place on a quiet street. A white fence, a narrow porch, a backyard big enough for a swing set. That house became the center of our lives. Homework at the kitchen table, pancakes on Sunday mornings, movie nights with blankets on the couch. Slowly, very slowly, she began to relax around me, but she never called me dad. And that was okay. Love isn't built with titles. It's built with time. One winter night, when she was 9, she got the flu. Her mom had to work double shifts at the hospital, so I stayed home with her. All night, I sat beside her bed, changed cool cloths on her forehead, brought soup, read stories when she couldn't sleep. Around 2 in the morning, half asleep, she whispered, "Thanks, David." It wasn't much, but in that moment, it meant everything. Middle school was harder. Kids at that age can be brutally honest. One afternoon, she came home quiet, dropped her backpack by the door, walked straight to her room. I knocked gently. "Everything okay?" Silence. Then a small voice said through the door, "Kids say you're not my real dad." I leaned against the wall. "They're right." A long pause. Then I added, "But I'm still here." No response. But later that night, she sat next to me during dinner, closer than usual. And sometimes, that's how healing begins. Years pass like that. Quiet growth, unspoken understanding, soccer practices, school plays, science fairs. I was always there, usually standing near the back, clapping the loudest. Even if she never looked my way, High school changed things again. Teenagers build distance. That's normal. She became more independent, more private, more protective of her world. But something else began happening too. She started introducing me differently. At school events, she'd say, "This is my mom's husband." Not stepdad, just mom's husband. The words stung more than I expected, but I kept smiling. Because love isn't a contract. You give it freely, or it isn't love at all. Her mom noticed. One evening after dinner, she asked softly, "Does it bother you?" I took a moment before answering. "A little." She squeezed my hand. "She'll understand one day." I hope she was right. Senior year arrived quickly. College applications, scholarships, deadlines, late nights. I helped proofread essays, drove her to interviews, practiced mock questions with her at the kitchen table. She thanked me politely every time, but still, always with that small distance, like I was a helpful neighbor, not family. A week before graduation, something unusual happened. The school counselor called me. His name was Mr. Carter. Calm voice. Professional. "David, could you stop by the school tomorrow?" I asked if everything was okay. He paused, then said, "There's something you should see." The next afternoon, I sat in his office. Diplomas lined the walls. Graduation banners hung outside the window. He slid a folder across the desk. "Your stepdaughter wrote her valedictorian speech." I smiled. "That's great. Read page 3. I opened the folder. The speech started beautifully, thanking teachers, encouraging classmates, talking about hard work. Then I reached page 3, and my chest tightened. She wrote about her mother's strength, her sacrifices, her support, all well-deserved. But when she mentioned me, there was one line. A man who happened to live with us. That was it. 12 years. Reduced to one sentence. Mr. Carter watched me carefully. "Is that fair?" he asked. I closed the folder gently. "Not exactly." He leaned back. "I've seen you at every event for years." I stayed quiet. Then he said, "Sometimes people need help seeing the full picture." And that's how we arrived at graduation day. The moment when truth would quietly reveal itself. Not with anger. Not with revenge. But with simple honesty. So when my stepdaughter finished that line about me just living in the house, and the room chuckled softly, Mr. Carter stepped onto the stage. He whispered something to her. Then the projector screen lit up behind them. The first photo appeared. A little girl learning to ride a bike, and a man running beside her, holding the seat. That man was me. Another photo. Science fair night. She stood proudly beside a volcano project. I was behind the table, holding extra poster boards. Another. Soccer practice. I knelt down, tying her cleats. Another. Hospital waiting room. I slept in a chair beside her bed. The room grew quieter with every image. Parents stopped whispering. Students leaned forward, because the photos told a story. Not a loud story, just a quiet one, of someone who showed up, over and over, for 12 years. Then the final slide appeared. A document. A college trust fund. Opened 12 years earlier. Monthly deposits. Every single month. Signed, David. A soft murmur spread through the auditorium. My stepdaughter stared at the screen. Confused. Then shocked. Then emotional. She turned slowly toward me. Tears filling her eyes. Mr. Carter stepped away. Handed her the microphone. And the room waited. She swallowed hard. "I didn't know." Her voice cracked slightly. Then she looked at me again. "David, would you come up here?" I walked to the stage. Calm. Steady. No anger. No pride. Just quiet steps. When I reached the podium, she handed me the microphone. Her hands shaking. I looked out at the crowd. Hundreds of faces. Parents. Students. Teachers. And then I spoke. I never needed recognition. Pause. I never needed a title. Another breath. I just believe that when you love someone, you show up. The room stayed silent, listening. "I'm proud of this young woman," I said softly. "She worked hard to stand here today." She wiped her eyes. Families don't always look the way we expect. Sometimes love grows quietly. And sometimes it takes time for people to see it. I handed the microphone back and stepped away. For a moment, the room was completely silent. Then someone stood up, clapping. Then another. Then another. Soon the entire auditorium was standing. A warm, powerful standing ovation. My stepdaughter stepped forward, wrapped her arms around me. And for the first time in 12 years, she whispered, "Dad." Later that night, we sat together on the porch, fireflies flickering in the yard. She looked down at her hands. "I thought you were just helping because you had to." I smiled gently. "No one has to love someone." She nodded slowly. "I'm glad you did." Life teaches us something important. Real love doesn't demand credit. It doesn't shout. It doesn't keep score. It simply shows up. Again, and again, and again, until one day, someone finally sees it. Today she's in college, using that trust fund, chasing her dreams. And every Sunday, my phone rings. Her voice on the other end says, "Hi, Dad." And honestly, that one word means more than any speech ever could. If this story resonated with you, let me know where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.